Very rarely do video games get second chances, and it's even rarer when they deserve it. Usually bigger IPs can have multiple cracks at it because they are backed by giant publishers. They can afford to have a stinker or 7, because there's another entry as part of the series coming right behind the stinker. But in the case of Ready at Dawn's The Order 1886, it was a one and done, even though they had built enough cachet with Sony, at least in my eyes, by developing Daxter for the PSP, then moving on to the PSP God of Wars. The Order 1886 was the first original IP they developed. But Sony, for whatever reason, did not give them the time they truly needed for it to reach its full potential. Andrea Pacino, a founder from Ready at Dawn, recently said in an interview they needed a whole other year to truly finish the game. So story elements along with a whole bunch of other stuff had to be cut out. And before the game's released, a full playthrough of the game leaked online, with the game's length stirring up controversy with the video being around 5 hours long. Players immediately felt cheated out of the $60 price tag without even playing the game first, which led to a bunch of mixed reviews, with critics praising the game's production value, graphics, and the level of detail, but felt it was lacking on the story and gameplay side of things. I remember this game being a huge reason why I even wanted a PS4 back then. I remember watching Sony's E3 presentation in 2013 and I was left intrigued and very, very thirsty to find out what this game was all about. And even with the mediocre reviews after its release, it didn't deter me from wanting to play it whatsoever. And I remember enjoying it back then, while still agreeing with some of the criticisms. But I haven't played it since, so maybe my thoughts have changed. So join me as I take another look back at The Order 1886. The Order are the knights from King Arthur's Round Table, whose purpose is to protect the world from half-breeds and rebellious organizations. You play as Sir Galahad, whose team is composed by Sir Percival, his mentor, Lady Igraine, daughter of the Lord Chancellor, and Galahad's lady friend, I think. They never actually kiss or anything, but it's like heavily hinted. And we can't forget about the youngster Marquis de Lafayette. After an encounter against some rebels, Sir Galahad is led underground where he faces off some Lycan. Sir Percival thinks there's a connection between the Lycan and the rebels and pleads to the Order they shall launch an investigation. This is shot down by the Lord Chancellor, but Sir Lucan, the Chancellor's son, approves it on the hush-hush. During the investigation at the rebels' headquarters, not only do they find more Lycan, but they also find plans to attack Lord Hastings, chairman of the United India Company. So the team boards the airship where he's currently on and stop the assassination, but a bomb goes off. So one half of the team helps out with the passengers' evacuation, with Percival and Sir Galahad staying behind to search for the rebel leader. Before they get any more information, a second bomb goes off, crashing the airship and killing Sir Percival. Back at the council, Lafayette gets knighted with his new name of Percival.
I dub thee Sir Percival, servant of our great king and knight of the Round Table.
When the rebels attack the Westminster Bridge to try and kill Lord Hastings again, Galahad, still pissed over OG Percy's death, goes in hard, killing all the rebels he sees on the bridge, and heads to their base at Whitechapel to confront the leader, who turns out to be Queen Lakshmibai. She tries to convince Galahad that the United India Company are the true villains and to focus his efforts on trying to take them down. And in efforts to try to convince him, she takes him to a warehouse where in the crates they find a bunch of vampiros who are hibernating and headed to the United States of America. So using oil cans that are conveniently placed on top of the crates, they set the cargo on fire. Galahad takes his info back to the council, but is ignored.
The Lord Chancellor will permit me, I
will not permit!
Except for Sir Lucan, who believes him and wants to help infiltrate the United India Company headquarters to find evidence, which they do with help from Lakshmi and her crew. They find evidence that they want to ship half-breed overseas, and they also walk into Lord Hastings himself feasting on some poor lad in his true vampiro form. He also reveals that he is Jack the Ripper.
Jacob Van Neck. Or, as the Fleet Street pamphleteers have so fondly named me, Jack the Ripper.
Then Lucan betrays them as part of his plan to get rid of them and turns into a Lycan himself, Lucan the Lycan. After a fight, the Popo shows up along with Igraine and Lafayette, as Galahad is arrested and labeled a traitor for attempting to murder Lord Hastings. I found it weird that not one time did Galahad try to defend himself, saying, "Yo, that old fart is a vampiro, man. Like, check his ass out. What are y'all doing? Why don't you go upstairs and find homie with a hole in his neck?" Instead, he just kind of sits there and gets sentenced to death.
Honored knights, how do you find for the prisoner?
Guilty.
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 Guilty. Guilty. Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty.
Guilty.
Guilty. The sentence is death.
In the opening sequence of the game, we start as Sir Galahad as he's escaping jail, and then he just tumbles off this structure. So then we come back to that moment and see what happens when he hits the water. He is saved by Nikola Tesla. Basically, he's like the Q, like from the guy from 007. He's like that to the Order, or, you know, like the Lucius Fox to Batman. He supplies the Order with the state-of-the-art weaponry and gadgets. So him, along with this old man in a hood who we never actually find out who he truly is, save Galahad and take him over to Lakshmi, who uses black water, a magical substance that helps the Order with healing. Galahad takes a full fortnight to recover.
You've been in and out of consciousness for almost a fortnight.
Lakshmi plans to leave Westminster, but Galahad fears that they will find out Tesla was the one who helped him, and he doesn't want to leave without him. So he heads back to go get him, where he encounters Lucan, serving as the final boss of the game, and as you defeat him, he says that he did it for his race. Then the Lord Chancellor emerges, saying that he knew about this all along, because back in the day, after taking out a whole tribe of Lycan, he couldn't bring himself to kill this one baby one. So he adopted him and named him Lucan so he wouldn't forget. Lucan the Lycan. He also says that this whole ordeal can't be revealed to the public and hands a gun to Galahad so he can end it all. In exchange, he gets banished from London. And as you pull the trigger, the screen goes to black. Then in a post-credit scene, Galahad is seen on the rooftop of London talking to Tesla, who says he should leave because London has now been put under martial law. And Galahad responds with,
I'll join you shortly. And don't you know, I'm Galahad, no more.
I'm Batman.
The game's story just feels a bit rushed, if I'm honest, especially by the end. The final boss is kind of like whatever, and it just kind of ends. We don't really get to see consequences of what else happened afterwards. It just leaves it super open for a sequel with a ton of questions unanswered, like, who the hell is the Hooded Man? How does Igraine feel about her brother being a Lycan? Did she know he was a Lycan? Is she mad at Galahad? What will the rebels do now? Is Galahad actually the first Batman? I got so worked up because I just wanted to know more about this world. I freaked out over this little symbol. I was like, what the f does that mean? Is that a new order, huh? Is that Galahad's new order? Is he got a new group? Is he like teaming up with the rebels and that's their new logo, or what's going on? No, you stupido. That's just Ready at Dawn's logo. Relax. I found myself reading way too much into it, but it's just because I love that world and I really wanted more. The alternate history of Victorian London steampunk setting is so sick to me. I like the characters involved, I love the dynamic of the team, and I just felt like much more could have been explored. The origin of the Order, that could have been explained better. You do collect voice memos that explain much more on the lore, but it's just simply not enough. This whole game just feels like a setup for bigger and better things. And there's just so much more room for story. And it's kind of sad we won't get any more. And like I said, it definitely feels rushed. The pacing of the story is kind of chaotic. The game would have greatly benefited from that extra year that they wanted. Hopefully to like simmer down the pace of the story, because they kind of gloss over things that they could have expanded on and make better. Like the whole Jack the Ripper stuff. It doesn't feel like it was actually a huge problem for the population and the people there to deal with that. So then when Lord Hastings reveals it's him, it's just kind of like,
oh. Okay.
Because there was no build up to it. It's just kind of thrown at you. What it needed was a few chapters dedicated to the Ripper killings. Like maybe you find the victim and you go inspect the body, and then you see a wound and you start following blood tracks, and then you spot the counselor guy as a vampiro, right? And then you chase him or something, but you don't know it's actually the chancellor because you just see a vampiro, so you just chase a vampiro. Maybe even have a fight with him. Let's say you wound him or cut him in the face or something, but then he gets away. So then later on when you see him at his base, you see the scars that you left from the wound from that battle, you know? So then you put two and two together and find out, oh shit, it was him the whole time, you know? Something like that. I just felt like way more could have been done with the Jack the Ripper thing. It just felt a little bit wasted. One of the biggest positives of this game is the level of detail from a graphical standpoint. It's pretty insane. Easily still holds up today. I feel like they could have done even deeper, maybe like a black and white mode. That would have been sick. I mean, there is a reason why it was called the glorified tech demo, because of how great it looks. Now listen, I understand the complaints that it's basically an interactive movie and it's too short, and I get all that. There are 16 chapters and some of the chapters are just straight up cutscenes, which isn't a smart move. And yeah, if I would have paid $60 back then, I would probably have those same feelings. But that doesn't take away from the awesome that the game did do. There's a lot of cool creative decisions that were made. The action feels unique, almost like it's a movie from a third-person perspective. It's a cover shooter, and the shooting kind of reminded me of Uncharted a bit. It just feels different than anything else I've played before. When you get hit, Galahad's perspective changes, everything in the background becomes blurry, which I found to be very unique, and that could be annoying to some people. I get that too. But I'm in love with the design of everything, from the clothes to the weapons to the gadgets. I wanted more. You know, there's a mix of regular guns and Tesla design weapons, like the thermite gun that lights them up and the arc gun that shoots electricity. The shooting feels really smooth, and you're placed in pretty fun areas to have shootouts in, with a ton of enemies coming at you. And I really love the constant communication between you and your team at the time. They're constantly pointing out where enemies are coming from. Like, just makes it feel like they're engaged.
Up there, on the generator. More guards in the left. One of them has a detonator.
Son of a whore.
As you take down enemies, you start to fill up on your black sight bar, where you slow down time and you're able to take a ton of shots onto enemies. It's kind of like the Deadeye in Red Dead Redemption. It's just done way more janky here. I kind of just shot kind of crazy, not fully grasping as to how to aim or whatever. It's a little bit wonky, so that could have used a little bit more work. There's also some very basic platforming as well, and some kind of annoying stealth areas that you have to get by. They're annoying because once you get caught, it's an instant kill. You can do stealth takedowns, but instead of just walking behind somebody and pressing a button, you have to kind of time them, which is very inconvenient because if you mistime it, you get caught. I like that when you're in conflict, Galahad moves way faster. It might even be too fast sometimes, but the way he moves just feels super smooth. You wouldn't clip on anything a whole lot, and the cover shooting is very fluid. If you do take a hit, you will go down, so you must take a drink of the black water and start button mashing X to try to get up. And if you get down again, you're done. The QTEs aren't unfair by any means, but they can catch you by surprise because you're just watching a long cutscene and all of a sudden you have to press a button. And I also agree that they might have relied on them a little bit too much. You will have a few 1v1s against Lycans where you have to dodge and button mash, and you can use the meter to do a series of attacks on them. I get what they were going for in these fights, but they just come off as a bit unpolished and goofy to me. This combat needed to be tightened up a little bit more. It just feels a bit clumsy. Sometimes you have a cool looking transmitter thing that you use to mess with power boxes and to proceed in the game, where you have to do this mini game stopping the ball in this area. Apparently people hated it. I don't understand why. It's not like it's terribly difficult. You just click the stick one at a time and hold them down, and that's it. I didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty cool. Then there's a lockpick one where you have to turn the joystick around so you feel vibration to unlock doors. And you also send Morse code using the pad one time, and I thought that was a pretty cool use of the super neglected PS4 touchpad. What I did find dumb and pointless was the inspection of the items. It's kind of stupid because you don't find anything while doing so. It's not like in Resident Evil where you discover something like a little compartment and find a clue or anything. You're just twirling the thing around just because you can. Yeah, sure, sometimes you interact with a gun or something and it looks cool, but it just doesn't really add a whole lot. This made me laugh. I don't know why Galahad would do this, but he would breathe like a pissed off dad who's had a bad day at work. Then I heard Igraine doing it too. I don't know why there was so much huffing and puffing. But I guess it added to the realism. Even with its shortcomings, I really enjoyed this game, mainly because of its setting, the themes, the characters, the enemies, and especially because of the potential of what could have been. I really feel like I'm working overtime to try to convince I don't even know who that this was a great game. It's not a great game. It has more potential than anything else. But I mean, come on, there's Lycans, there's magical healing water, vampiros, titties, and dicks. Come on, what else you guys want? I just really couldn't stop thinking about what else could have been done with the series. More story on the origin of the Order could have been touched upon on like a sequel or maybe even a third game if we even got that far. Like we get to play how it came together, like the first encounter versus any big creature. Like there's just a lot in this world that you can mess around with and expand, telling stories within this world. And it's kind of sad to me that all that potential is just sitting there. I couldn't even see potential for movies and series. I had to chill out because I had a big chunk of this video going in on who I thought should play each part of the game. I mean, I had directors, I had how long production, I had a whole thing. It's just that's what this game did to me, okay? Ideas are flowing and I had to get it out. But I spared you from listening to them. But hey, if you have them, let me know down in the comments if you would like to see a movie and who would you see as the lead and all the other characters and all that. I guess I'm just trying to cope with the fact that there actually will be no more of this, you know, and because it was left so open, my head just starts racing with ideas. Like the Order 1887 could have had more creatures like vampiros, trolls, mummies, zombies, and maybe like Frankenstein or something, those type of creatures. The series could have dig deeper into conspiracies. Imagine the game revealing that Queen Victoria was a vampira. That would have been sick. And I would have believed that they would have learned from their mistakes and improved on the first game. And from the sounds of it, Ready at Dawn really felt like they owed it to the players to rectify those mistakes. Even pitching a sequel idea to Sony with them just flat out saying no.
Son of a whore.
So they never really got a chance to. Sony thought that the reception more than the sales of the first game were at fault for why they didn't move forward with a sequel. I wish studios just had the balls to remake not only games that were already a success, but maybe games that they screwed up on that deserve a second chance. I know that's a huge financial risk, I get it. You know, in my make-believe fairy tale video game dream world, that's what remakes should be used for. Games that had a ton of potential and for whatever reason just failed. So you go back knowing what you screwed up on and you improved it and you fix it. A huge example of this was No Man's Sky. The way that released, no one had that as a success, but they invested a whole bunch of money and time and effort to make it better. They put so much more into it that they forced it to be a success, with a bunch of expansions making the players happy and improving on what they screwed up on. That's what some of the remakes should be, you know, a second chance. So if you've not played The Order 1886, I recommend you do. I want you to experience it for yourself. You might love it, you might hate it. Either way, I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments. Any and all The Order 1886 thoughts, feel free to dump them down in the comments. And while you're down there, if you can hit the subscribe button and the notified bell next to it, it would greatly help out the channel, along with a share and a like. Thank you guys for watching, I really appreciate it. And remember to always and forever, you do you.